All right, the last of our kind of romantic authors that we are going to explore is Herman Melville. And you guys are probably familiar with him as a novelist. He wrote, of course, as you know, Moby Dick, and that's kind of his most critical acclaim to fame. But he also was. Not only did he write several other novels, he also wrote short stories that Bartleby the Scrivener, Billy Budd, and some other works. But those are kind of his most famous claim to fames. Um, what was I going to say? Forgot what I was going to say. But yes, not necessarily known for being a short story writer, but he did write some really good ones, some really long ones, which is why I've chosen the one that I have chosen for us to explore. Herman Melville, he was born in 1819 in New York City to a well connected, or I guess a socially connected family, but it ended up not going well for his father. They had to declare bankruptcy, so they kind of had financial problems throughout his childhood. And because of that, he decided to go on merchant vessels and merchant ships, and he became a whaler. And he traveled all over the world. And when I mean all over the world, he traveled all over the world, in the South Pacific, in various other parts of I mean, like I said, all over the world, on these whaling merchant vessels. And it's because of his stories from all over the place that he decides to kind of write them down and use them as inspiration for some of his most famous novels, like Moby Dick or Typee and Omu. And he kind of finds a little bit of fame and acclaim in, not so much in America, but really he becomes a very popular author in England, uh, believe it or not. Um, and after he has this kind of literary fame, he marries into a he kind of gives up his sailing life for a life of marriage and fatherhood, and he marries the daughter of a chief justice. I believe her name is Elizabeth Shaw. He marries her. And after his initial success as an author, he begins moving away from the novel and into short stories and poetry. And he does not really find literary success, ever again. I mean, he was basically ruined after his last novel, Pierre, was written, and he kind of has this nervous breakdown, for lack of a better word. Um, so he never really kind of recovers from that nervous breakdown. And in his old age, he was prone to kind of these psychotic breaks and bouts of depression. And that kind of is exacerbated by his second son's suicide. But anyways, I'm digressing. He dies in relative obscurity in New York City in 1891, and he is now buried in the Bronx. But I do think that it's worth noting that he was very good friends with Nathaniel Hawthorne. He bought a house near Hawthorne, and they were particularly close. And there are critics who say that they were more than just friends. But he's so much enamored with Nathaniel Hawthorne that he dedicates Moby Dick to him, and his friendship and his literary genius as an inspiration to him. So Herman Melville is, like Hawthorne and Poe, a bit of a romantic writer. And it's dark romanticism, and a lot of his work is in reaction to industrialism and commercialism, and it's also affected greatly during the Civil War. These kind of moral platitudes and views of men during this time of he becomes obsessed with hypocrisy. So a lot of his later works are social commentaries on those types of ideas, particularly for our story, industrialism. And because of that, he looks at extremes to explore the true nature of humankind. So hang tight. I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to finally round out our lecture for this week with background and introduction to the Paradise of Bachelors and the Tartarus of Old Maids.